War does not create famine overnight. It breaks energy, fertilizer, transport, and prices until food becomes scarce or unaffordable. Berlin, November 1916. You are a mother of three. Your government told you the war would be over by Christmas. It is now the second Christmas. The British naval blockade has cut off food imports. The potato harvest failed, not because of the weather, but because the army seized the nation's copper for shell casings. Without copper, there was no fungicide, and without fungicide, blight destroyed the crop. Your ration card gives you 1,000 calories a day. Your children need 2,000. The only food left is turnips, livestock feed. Well, you boil them, mash them, bake them into bread. It becomes known as the turnip winter. By the end of the war, hundreds of thousands of civilians, mothers, children, old men will die from hunger and disease caused by the blockade. Leningrad, November 1941. The siege has lasted 2 months. Your bread ration has just been cut to 125 grams a day. 3 thin slices, about 300 calories. You need 2,000. Through the winter, 100,000 people will die each month. People boil wallpaper paste because it contains potato starch. The zoo animals are gone. The pets are gone. Beirut, August 4th, 2020. A warehouse at the port explodes and destroys the country's only major grain silos. Within 2 years, the price of a basic food basket rises by 1,500%. 85% of Lebanese can no longer afford staple foods. The pattern is the same. War disrupts energy. Energy disrupts food. Food prices explode. Savings are turned into calories, and that is the chain. Every war-driven famine follows the same sequence. War disrupts energy. Energy disrupts agriculture. Agriculture disrupts transport. Transport disrupts distribution. Prices explode, and savings turn into calories. Germany in 1916. Leningrad in 1941. Yemen in 2015. Every time it is the same chain. What keeps me up at night is this. The Strait of Hormuz carries the feedstocks for nitrogen fertilizer that helps grow food for 4 billion people. That route is closed. The world's largest urea supplier has halted operations. Fertilizer plants across Asia have shut down. This disruption hits in the middle of spring planting. Farmers who cannot get fertilizer now will harvest less food later. There is no strategic fertilizer reserve anywhere in the world. First, productive land. In every documented food crisis, people who owned land that could grow food survived. People dependent on supply chains did not. In World War I, Germany, rural families with gardens and livestock ate while urban families starved. During the Dutch hunger winter of 1944, survival rates near farms were much higher. The famine killed 20,000 people, almost all of them in cities, and tens of thousands of children were sent from Amsterdam to rural households because the countryside still had food. Farmland is the one asset inflation cannot devalue, currency collapse cannot erase, and supply chain failure cannot make useless. It feeds you regardless of what the government does. Second, stored food. By 1944, 75% of American housewives still canned food at home, averaging more than 160 jars a year. Victory Gardens produced 40% of all fresh vegetables eaten in the United States. There were more than 20 million gardens, 2/3 of them in cities and backyards, window boxes, and vacant lots. Families canned, dried, and pickled food to build a buffer between themselves and the supply chain. COVID showed what happens without that buffer. Shelves emptied in hours from a demand shock. A prolonged energy crisis is worse because it is a supply shock. The trucks that restock the shelves do not get fuel. A demand shock empties shelves for days. A supply shock can empty them for weeks. The point of keeping at least 3 months of food is not that every crisis lasts 3 months. It is that 3 months gives you time to adapt before panic buying strips the shelves bare. Third, community networks. In 1917, more than 2,000 soup kitchens in nearly 500 German cities kept millions alive. Hamburg alone served 6 million meals in a single month. Those kitchens did not appear by accident. Communities built them because individual families could not survive alone. During the siege of Leningrad, the survivors were not the strongest or the richest. They were the most connected. People with communal kitchens, neighbors who pooled rations, and scientists who developed substitute foods from cellulose and birch bark. During the Dutch hunger winter, even at 370 calories a day, social order largely held. State distribution continued, neighbors shared, and historians credit those community networks with preventing collapse. The lone survivalist dies. The connected community survives. Your neighbor is not your competitor. Your neighbor is your insurance policy. Fourth, hard assets for barter. When currency fails, barter takes over, and history shows exactly what gets traded. During the Dutch hunger winter, city residents walked for days to the countryside carrying jewelry, watches, and antiques. A gold wedding ring could buy a sack of potatoes. That is the exchange rate of desperation. In the Soviet Union, black market prices ran 15 to 18 times higher than official ration levels. In Germany, historians estimate that a third of all food moved through illegal channels. Farmers did not want paper money. They wanted things they could hold in their hands. In every food crisis, three groups get rich: farmers who control production, middlemen who control distribution, and people with hard assets to trade. Gold works, silver works, jewelry works. Paper money does not, because paper money is what loses value while food prices explode. Fifth, skills that create value. A doctor in wartime Germany had food because people traded food for medical care. A mechanic had food because transport operators traded food for repairs. A woman who knew how to preserve food had a skill her neighbors would pay for in kind. People without tradable skills and without hard assets had one option: stand in line and hope. In Leningrad, more than 1,200 people were murdered in the first half of 1942 for their food cards. A ration card meant life. No ration card meant death. Yemen shows the same chain in modern form. The Saudi blockade restricted fuel and food imports. The result was hundreds of thousands of deaths and a population in which more than half suffered food insecurity. The food was still there, sitting in the markets where people could see it. They simply could not afford it. That is the cruelest form of famine. Not empty shelves, but full shelves you cannot reach. Now the same chain is forming again. The Strait of Hormuz is closed. Fertilizer deliveries have stopped. Spring planting is happening without enough fertilizer. The effects will not appear in food prices tomorrow. They will appear at harvest. No one stockpiled fertilizer because no one expected the strait to close. American grocery stores hold roughly 3 days of inventory. Every stage of food production depends on diesel. The system is built for efficiency, not resilience. It works perfectly until it does not. Fuel rationing is already spreading across Asia. Gas stations are running dry. Schools have shifted to 4-day weeks. The real question is whether, when the chain breaks, you will have land, stored food, community, hard assets, and useful skills, or whether you will stand in line with a ration card and a prayer. That mother in Berlin, cooking turnips for her children for the third straight month, did not plan for any of it. No one told her copper meant for fungicide would end up in shell casings. No one told her a blockade 1,000 kilometers away would empty her kitchen. She trusted the system to feed her family. The system fed the army instead. The scientists at the Vavilov Seed Bank in Leningrad understood something deeper. Surrounded by edible seeds, rice, wheat, corn, peas, they starved rather than eat the collection. They chose to preserve 200,000 seed samples for future generations instead of saving themselves. They understood that food is not just calories. Food is the future, and the people who control it control everything. The pattern is mathematical. The outcome is predictable. The only variable is you. Plant something now before you are forced to.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. Stay informed, stay rational. See you in the next one.